afternoon and welcome to another Super Saturday with the ladies of DW 2.0, The Rise of a Broken Woman. I am LaWanda.
I'm Elisa.
I'm Victoria.
And welcome back. Now, I know for those of you who have been with us throughout the duration of this, our endeavor, which is 2.0, this page, this group was created as a meeting place, if you will, for women to talk about and dialogue about things that women go through, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's your accomplishments, accolades, anything like that. But it gives women kind of like a support group, an outlet, especially people who don't have friends, have a big circle of friends, and they feel like they're alone in a lot of situations. Right. This, you have an opportunity where you can log on and speak with us and kind of give your opinion, your viewpoint, your stance, maybe even give some insight into the plight of a woman. And we're not saying that we're totally disregarding a man's point of view, but no one knows a woman like another woman.
Right.
Of course, we're going to have our different ideals.
And we can't speak on like men's feelings and what men think because we're not men. Yeah. So, we value their opinion and we value their input with us just as much as we hope that they value our opinion and our input on things that matter to them as well.
And I think a lot of times you can get a completely different perception because you think, okay, when women get together, they're going to talk about men, they're gonna male bash and things like that. But this is not what this is about. This is women being able to identify with the plight of another woman, because we are the only ones who can understand, and some people won't get it. I know I had somebody who was like, well, what if I tune in and I'm offended by what you're saying as a woman? And I didn't want to discount or disregard his feelings about it, but I was like, if I'm speaking from a perspective of a woman, then that's what it is.
And that means that we've gone through the situation that we're talking about. So we're sharing our experiences and what happened from our point of view and on our end. Yes, there's always two sides to every story. But like she said, we can only speak for our parts as women because this is a show about empowering women. Yeah. I wish there was guys who got together and did a show about empowering men and it not be a misogynistic and very how to say this,
woman
yes. Because guys need just as much support. I strongly believe that, but again, this is about women for women, so we do appreciate the men who
can give a different perspective from a male's point of view, but
at the same time keeping that decorum. That's appreciative.
I don't think we don't mind doing because part of empowerment is bringing men and women together and stuff. So if anybody have any ideas for bringing some males together and we do like a face-to-face when what like males go through and what males
like
go
a
through.
Battle of the sexes, but I hesitate on that word battle because people whatever. Yeah. But again, the
understanding of the sexes.
Yeah, and I think
a meeting of the minds.
We really need for each gender to not only respect but understand, for clarity
for each other. Yeah, that's what we need.
So today's topic is this is Domestic Violence Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Oh man, you're wearing purple.
Well, I don't have.
Well, you got a little bit in your
I don't own anything purple, but my heart's in that spice. This subject is very near and dear to me, and it strikes a very sensitive chord with me. So I'm gonna try to keep it together through the show. I apologize now if I become like a complete mess, but this show is very, very important to me. It's one of the most important shows I think that we'll ever do for myself.
And if you notice, we do have an extra chair here because we will have a special guest. And we will let you know when she gets here.
Yes,
when she, So in regards to domestic violence, who do you think that mostly, who's mostly affected by it?
Women.
Women are mostly affected by it, and I think it's because what I'm reading in the Psychology Today thing saying, while domestic violence against men does happen and is a very serious problem as it is with the women, women remain the primary victim. But for this reason, men who have faced abuse often find themselves stigmatized and ridiculed, which is something that we definitely need to get rid of.
So before you continue, let's talk about that, the stigma, and why is it something that affects women versus men? Men are looked at as they're supposed to
be hard,
signify or embody the
power,
strength and power and being protective, and not just
and no female is going to put their hands on me
another
I'm
man,
a man,
because we're intimidated by the fact that this is a man and not necessarily I respect this other human being.
Correct.
And so when you think about domestic violence not happening to men, when it does,
the 40% of domestic violence cases are men, and that's the only. That number seems low to me because I think that's not enough. Men aren't reporting it because of the being stigmatized within ridicule. Because if one of their buddies comes out and finds out, oh, he filed a domestic charge against his wife, he's less of a man.
And why is that? Why is a man less of a man? Because he's why do you think they look at it as being less of a man?
Because that's how men are raised, to be strong, stop crying, suck it up,
not
you're a man.
Display weakness, yeah.
And as a little boy, people are in the bad habit of saying, you're a man, suck it up. And that's where we fail our boys. You want them to have some kind of like stance in life and have a backbone and be strong, but at the same time, they need to learn when it's wrong, it's wrong.
And so, I mean, again, with certain stigmas associated with what it is to be a man. That's why I don't like to speak on being a man, because I'm not one, as you can see. But I do try to gather some understanding. I do want to understand why a man feels like anything that signifies weakness, like showing emotion or like just what are some of the adjectives used to describe a woman? Crying.
In
today's
society, sensitive, overly emotional, overly reactive, angry, nurturing, caring, loving, soft.
But these are great things, so why do they carry a weak stigma?
I don't understand, like, why we put so much power behind these words.
And that's what it is, power behind the words, yeah.
Is it doing
Yeah.
It's the power behind the words of, and so I think as long as people continue, and I always call it closed-minded.
Right.
Because that's not the way. Anyone with a beating heart has emotion, who is going to display emotion. So when you take that from a human being, I feel like that's completely asinine. When
you dehumanize a human,
that's what it is.
You're doing a great disservice and injustice to their ideations, their livelihood, and I think that's where we cause a lot of harm towards people, is by doing that.
And so again, with domestic violence being something that seems to be the narrative or the plight of a woman, when that's not necessarily true,
right?
I think it definitely depends on perception.
Yes.
Perception of what is considered weak versus strong. I mean, because women can be strong and still go through domestic violence.
But in another way, they'll say that a woman is weak because she put up with it.
She put up with it.
She couldn't walk away. Some people can't understand when you're in a situation or relationship like that. You've been groomed for so long and you've been alienated for so long. By that time, you're at that broken down stage where to yourself you don't mean anything. You don't have anybody to turn to. You've been already groomed to know that people are going to think you're crazy and they're not going to believe you. So it's very hard for us, and we're like, this is my spouse, this is my boyfriend, and we're going to get through this. It's a rough patch. I made a promise to God and my friends and family, and I'm not leaving because I can fix this.
I can change him.
Yes.
I can love him past whatever he's going through.
Past his pain.
And I was trying to find another word for it. Why do we feel like we can change this man? If this is in him, this is in him. And I don't care how good of a woman you think you are, if this is the way this man is, this is the way he is. But for some reason we will internalize it and blame ourselves. Well, maybe if I had cooked the food like he
Maybe
liked
if
it,
I was a better person.
Making excuses.
Yes.
For
We make
why
excuses.
things happen to
but
us.
we have to, when someone asks you, well, why did you stay?
I got asked that a lot.
What was your answer to?
My answer was this. You know, at that point, I didn't have a place to go. I mean, when someone is an abuser, they don't just hit you.
Mm-hmm.
They take your money.
They alienate you.
They alienate you.
Mm-hmm.
They make you feel worthless in that. Without them, you are nothing, and you're a piece of shit. Really, is what it boils down to. And I couldn't leave him because I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't even have access to my own money. I didn't have it, and I was the breadwinner. So, and for me, I was so embarrassed because I was a soldier. And at work, when the guys look at me, they see this strong, very tough, mouth-minded soldier who wouldn't put up with anything. To know that at home I was being abused and, any way you could think of it, it shocked them when they found out. They were just like,
okay, so what do you think was, they look at a soldier, there's a lot of preconceived notions about a soldier. I guess that makes you inhuman or something. You are the epitome of what is supposed to be strength. Mm-hmm. So how could you, being so
how could
strong,
you let him?
How could you?
And
allow that?
At work, I was one person because I needed to be that person because I felt fulfilled at work. I felt empowered at work, and I felt like I can tell these people, this is my line. You cross it, and we're gonna have issues, and I'm gonna come face to face with you. And plus, as being a combat veteran soldier, that strength was at my job. But at home,
if somebody knew,
I was
like you put on the facade.
When I was at home, I was the ghost of a woman that I used to be. So I walked around on eggshells. I tiptoed around emotions. Yeah. So I had to dictate how I was feeling. I had to dictate how I was feeling to match his moods. I couldn't come home too happy or what was going on. I couldn't come home too sad or why are you always mad and sad? I had to walk through the door and calculate his feelings and size him up and then match mine with his. If he was having a horrible day, I should be having a horrible day.
Okay, hold that thought. And remember when I was telling you guys that we did have a special guest, so she is here, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and give you some background so we can really get into this thing called domestic violence. So come on up. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Great.
How's everyone?
Great, thank you.
Fine.
We're excited that you're on this show.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
So just so you know, I'm LaWanda.
Well, hi, LaWanda.
Nice to meet
Lolita
you.
Gilmore.
I'm Elisa.
Nice to meet you.
And of course, in the flesh, Victoria.
Yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank
This
you
is
so
awesome.
much. Let me just go ahead and put out there. Thank you so much for everything that you do for victims of domestic violence. It's a very hard job. It's hard to deal with those people, and I just give you so much praise for that.
Well, praise God.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, like I said, thank you again for inviting me on.
You're welcome.
And October, we're looking at Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with that because it's something that should be, we should be doing awareness, so we can help with the prevention piece of this.
Right.
But you only see it in the month of October.
1 month, yes.
1 month.
When this goes on
Every day of the week.
Every day of the year, every hour, every minute.
Mm-hmm.
And we started looking at the statistics. And I was listening to you guys, and I'm like, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Mm-hmm.
Why do victims stay? Which is one of the reasons why we do what we do in the community with Teach Them to Love. And it was a matter of comeback veteran myself, and worked as a shop, worked at all of that, and saw how it was for our soldiers.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough.
It's
It's
very
truly rough.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come outside the community after retiring and working in the community, you're like, well, it's even worse. They don't have a relocation program.
Right.
They don't have these they don't have these resources in place.
The programs are so ill-funded.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Do you think
Very
it's because
much so.
it's not respected as being something that's actually going on? Is there a respect issue?
I don't think it's a respect issue. I think what it is at this point is the education.
Okay.
It's a lack of education.
Okay.
Because we look at domestic violence, and so what we did was we said, well, the children that come out of domestic violence, family violence, we'll put them in a category for child abuse. So when you start looking at sex trafficking or human trafficking,
Right.
and we'll take that over there and compartmentalize that and put that in another category. Then when you have your at-risk youth, you put them over there in the juvenile detention center. Nobody is looking at all of this stuff is coming out of the home. Where do I learn to batter a woman or a man for that matter? Where do I learn how to effectively communicate?
Right.
Where do I learn my parenting styles and skills? Where does all this come from? It comes from the home.
Yes.
Then they have a survey that we do. It's called the ACE, so Adverse Childhood Experiences. When we begin to look at that, most of your individuals that you see that are in the juvenile system suffering from truancy, these kids were at risk and they were in homes where domestic violence took place.
There was a catalyst.
Yes. So it's now that we're looking at surveys and we're beginning to do the research, and you're beginning to find out, even with the CDC, they've labeled it as a pediatric problem, because even in the womb, the child, you have the mother's being stressed and they hear everything that's going on.
Yes.
And so with that, how does that affect the development?
Yeah.
So now it's just a lack of awareness, it's a lack of education. And so, and as long as we paint it as it's just a female problem, people think you're out there just doing another feminist movement.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to say, like on most of the segments that we do, we try to include the positivity of a male's perspective for those who are appreciative and not, hurt. And coming in like, I'm hurt because of a woman, or I'm hurt because of my past experiences. But, male domestic violence is just on the rise as well.
It is.
But so many men, I feel so bad when they don't report it because they don't want to be stigmatized and ridiculed and looked down upon and emasculated. And emasculated.
And that's exactly what happens. And so when we look at our numbers, we say, okay, 1 out of 4 women are going to report. When you look at them, 1 out of 7.
Yeah.
That's sad. And so exactly. And so now we have to ask the question, okay, what's happening to the other 3 women? And when we look at the men, what's happening to the other 6? And so with that, because the females, because when we come down to the dynamics of power and control.
Right, exactly.
And that's the bottom line up front.
It definitely is a lot of control.
It is. And now and we look at the different categories of domestic violence. Like you were saying earlier, you have your verbal, you have your physical, you have the psychological, the mental, the emotional, the sexual, the financial. You have all of that. And we want to say, well, why does she stay? Or why does he stay? And when we look at everything, let's think about where that person came from. Their value system, their
back
belief
into
system.
history.
Yeah, you look at all of that. So if I was raised in a home and my belief system says that no matter what, I'm going to stay married. And then if I'm going and there's some religious or spiritual beliefs that helps that, to say that we want to work this out. No matter what, we can just pray about it and we can move forward.
Yes.
And so
pray about
mine
it.
Mine was very big with, I made a promise to God and my family was there. So it's not
for better or for worse.
Yeah. And I read that vow many times throughout my marriage, for better or for worse. This is worse. And if you walk away now, you're no better than staying when it was good.
Like you're dishonoring God.
I feel like I'm dishonoring a vow that I took so seriously. Yeah.
And that's what happens. And so now that we understand we're talking about power and control, there's nothing you can do with that particular mindset. And especially if they're not willing to go get the help. Because now we have some unresolved trauma or whatever was going on with that individual. And so this is the one thing I do have control over. I can control you. I can control what mom and dad did to me. I can control what happened in school or what happened to my parents. But I can control this.
Yes.
And so now, do you have a personality disorder? Do you have, what's going on? Is a chemical imbalance? We don't know. But we know that the situation is not safe. And so now, hence, we have to move. But I think another reason we see it so much because of lack of resources.
Definitely, that's what was happening in my case. I had nowhere to go. I didn't have access to my own money. But at the same time, when I reached out to my chain of command to help me, they were like, there's a shelter downtown.
Yeah.
I'm
so
I'm a United States soldier, and I got to go leave my kids with him and go to a shelter because they wouldn't take my children. I'm not doing that.
There's so many
And most won't.
variables.
Yeah.
There's so many variables that come into play when you're deciding to leave or to stay.
Yeah.
One being your kids, like you said,
Yes.
the financial aspect of it. What will people think?
Mm-hmm.
What will people say? You don't want to be embarrassed. It's the psychological aspect of will I be considered weak
Mm-hmm.
if I leave? Weak
What's
if I
this gonna?
stay?
Mine was, what is this going to do to my career?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And that was very
Exactly.
big for me because as a female in the military, you always have to prove yourself.
Oh,
No matter what
Female,
station to
period.
station, yeah, you're having to prove that you're supposed to be there. And I felt if this gets out and my chain of command's gonna know about it because he's not gonna remain quiet about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna think that I'm such a disturbance that I'm not worth being promoted, that I'm not worth
liability.
staying
But
in the
you
army.
can't be a full-time soldier and do your best when you got problems at home.
And that's
so,
what I tried to do, and I did it so well because nobody knew.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew.
We're good
what
at
was going on
masking.
at home.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
good
I'm
at
very
masking.
good at
We play
that.
roles.
I have really got that fake smile. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. Down to a science.
And so did he before you met him, because I'm pretty sure
Yes.
he put on that facade like I'm
To
the
you.
best thing
Yeah.
since sliced bread. I'm gonna love
Yeah.
you, and I'm not gonna ever hurt you, because that's one of the vows, right?
Yeah.
Honor, protect, whatever. And so he also put on that facade. But you got to think historically, it may have happened in his household because it
Right.
happened so long. He's been conditioned to respond a certain way or not respond. Or how do you think that's a conversation before you get into a relationship? A conversation you should have. Have you ever beat somebody? Did your family,
How
did
did
your
you
father
go?
beat? Do you have that conversation first?
You do have that conversation, and it may not come like if you ever beat somebody up.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
it
You
comes
ask
They're
those
gonna be honest.
you ask those fact-finding, open-end questions.
Exactly.
To
Is it a
lead
put
in.
off
No,
type of thing? Because if you were to meet somebody, hey, not only what's your 5-year plan? Okay, so have you ever been in a domestic violence situation? Like, you ever beat up your girlfriend? It looks crazy. It sounds crazy.
No,
Wait a minute,
it
this
doesn't
person has
sound crazy. I
baggage.
think
But to the person that you're asking the question
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
like,
right.
wait a
Perception is
second.
everything.
But
Yeah.
it's like you almost have to
Everything.
know what hurt were you raised in, or what kind of condition were you raised? What's your family value makeup dynamic?
so.
If
Now
you say
we
family
start
value-
talking about values. Now we
Yeah.
start talking about belief systems, because at this point you can pretty much judge if you're sitting there with somebody for the first, let's say, 30 minutes of that conversation. Now, people are pretty good at masking,
Oh.
but I think, remember we said it goes back to education?
Yes.
So now we start looking at what does a healthy relationship look like?
Look, what does a healthy relationship look like to you? Because it might be different to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then we begin to look at that, and there are certain questions, well, hey, I have strong family ties.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
What was the relationship between your mom and your dad? And people begin to tell you, and we may open up a door, like you said, the open-ended questions. And so you look at that, okay, let's expound on that a little bit. I'm interested in having kids. Now, true enough, you're not going to set up all that, well, I hope not on the first date, because you may not get a call back.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When do you
Right.
decide
Yeah.
what is
Before
what is
you
enough?
get entangled in the relationship.
Mhm.
And one of the things we have to say, people don't take time to get to know the other person.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is
They're not
so
dating
true.
anymore.
Yeah, we're not dating
dating
anymore.
doesn't happen. It's
You
just
know?
hooking up and hanging out.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Do you have the conversation before or after you have sex?
Well, I would hope you have it before.
But that, no, like,
But the
you
realistic-
But you know, nowadays
But
it
it's
doesn't
like-
happen like that.
it's like
so.
hindsight. Now, had I had that conversation prior to having sex, maybe I wouldn't be in this
But that
situation.
goes back to the education piece. Teen dating violence. It's astronomical. It's off the charts right
And
now.
I'm watching some of these videos that teens take of themselves with their phones at school, and I'm thinking, he just slapped this young girl, and
Yes.
everybody was like, "Ooh, that was cool." That was a high fiving it, and the girls were like, "That she deserved that."
Yeah.
Exactly.
On
Exactly.
what planet do their parents see this and think, "Yeah, that's cool. Continue
see,
down that path."
All right, and that goes back to when we start talking about some of the contributing factors to domestic violence. So now you look, what are the social norms associated with it?
Exactly.
You know?
That dominating.
Yeah, so
that
we
other
go back
person.
on that. My hood, it may be acceptable,
Mhm.
you know, because it's just how people act.
Mhm.
And then in yours, it may be something different. In that school environment, hey, that was acceptable.
Yeah.
But you have some individuals up in there like, no, we're not having that.
Mhm.
And this is where the clash comes in. And so, but we have to, even in the school system, we have to be able to get in there and start teaching as well.
Yes, it does need to start there. Because we're also learning as little girls, we're taught as little girls that if a boy, when a boy picks on you, he likes you. When he pulls your hair, he likes
And
you.
this is
When he
okay.
crunches on you, he likes
He
you.
likes you.
Yeah.
So when he gets older, if he pops me in the mouth, it's because he
Oh,
loves
because
me.
he loves me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's why we all jacked up now, because of that mentality. Like, that's crazy.
Right.
You teach on the butt. Although now it's looked at as being sexual harassment when you do it in the workplace. Why was it okay for a little boy to pinch you because he liked you on the
Right.
butt? Although, I don't know.
Right.
But
Hey, y'all brought back flashbacks when I was a kid. The little boy that liked me. I'm like,
the hide and go get it and all of that
Yeah.
was a thing.
Yeah.
But now it's not a thing. So when did the tide change then?
Mhm.
Was it always not right, or did it just become something that's not okay?
I think we played it off as they're just so young and innocent. They don't
Validated
mean
it.
anything.
Mhm.
But that young and innocent can turn into, if this bitch don't walk in this house at this time, and I know she's off work, I'm gonna beat her ass.
Right.
And it's okay because, I used to pick on this girl all the time. She's used to
It was
me
okay
throwing hands
then.
at
It
her.
should be okay now.
Right.
Yeah.
So we made it acceptable, the social norm. So how do we? I don't want to go
Doing
into
what
how we
we're
change
doing
it.
now.
Having a
Doing what
conversation.
we're doing
Yes.
now. We just had a domestic violence awareness conference out at Texas A&M. We partnered with them to do that. And so because we have to get an understanding that our kids, they're not getting the same value system that we
Yeah.
grew up in.
Right.
And so now you got your millennials, you have both parents working,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're both parents, if they're lucky to have both parents in the home, you
Right.
may have a single parent.
Mhm.
And so that single parent may have to work 2 to 3 jobs.
That's right.
Yes.
Who's in the home now?
Mhm.
And so, and with that, social media, your TV,
Yes.
this is what's raising our kids.
Yeah.
And so now, the little boy that shows an interest, no matter how mean he is, but he spends time with me.
Right.
He likes me.
He's giving me
He's
feedback.
filling that void.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But what is
Yeah.
it that
Yeah.
women typically want when they are considering a mate? I want attention. We didn't differentiate whether it was negative or positive. We
Right.
just want attention.
Right.
We want somebody to compliment us. This same man that's complimenting you could be knocking your face off, So, like, we, like when you pray to God for a significant other, we say, okay, we want him to be tall, dark, and handsome. But we did not say, I don't want him to abuse me. Like, you got to be really.
Yeah, we don't ask for-
That's how it's the afterthought.
Yeah.
We
We
don't sit there and pray to God, please bring me a man who's a good man, has a good heart, treats people with
Moral
respect,
compass.
has a moral compass,
Yeah.
has some kind of integrity, has goals, has
Values.
You gotta be
ambition,
very
Yes.
and
specific.
loves his parents and
Down to
siblings.
earth. Yes.
You have to really be specific now.
But then people will look at it as, okay, now you're being too
Greedy.
intensive, you're being
Yeah.
too.
Well,
You
you
know,
gotta be
we
greedy.
get
You
back
gotta
to our
be
core
greedy.
values.
Have to.
Yeah.
It's
And have that
imperative.
established. Get back to our core values.
Yeah.
What are we teaching our children?
Mhm.
Because young girls need to understand all this stuff that has come out in Hollywood right about now, from Weinstein to
Yes.
Bill Cosby. It was happening at a time when these things were acceptable.
acceptable, very acceptable.
Very acceptable.
Slapping a woman on her butt when she
Yeah,
walked by,
That's
even if
what
you
I
didn't
said,
know her,
yeah.
that was like, and the woman didn't say anything
Yeah.
because who's she gonna say something
What's
to?
she say?
Because it was like not until what 76 that the laws of putting your hands on a woman came into play.
So-
In some states, it was later than that.
Is it later than that?
So
In
I
some
always feel
countries,
like
that was- it's
I
still
always,
okay.
yeah, I always feel like no matter how far we progress, A, there's always going to be racism,
Mhm.
and B, we're always going to be considered third-class citizens.
Mhm. And so, and that is where we are with domestic violence. How can we continue to push it under the rug, push it back? It takes second place to, when they say violent crimes.
It's
All
a
right,
violent crime.
it's a violent crime.
Yeah.
It is a violent crime. So now you have all this separatism.
Mhm.
And so you're like, well, wait a minute. But because as long as it's identified, it's just something that affects women.
Mhm.
And we have to change our tune with that and say, this is an equal opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
It affects everybody in every class.
Directly or
in
indirectly,
every
it still
gender.
affects.
You know, my
Yeah.
daughter was raised, my ex-husband and I, we have taught our daughter that it's not okay for somebody to put their hands on you.
Yeah.
Even if they're just joking and they're being flirtatious, it's not okay. You need to tell
Okay.
somebody, tell us, tell a teacher, tell somebody. And
Right.
we have put into our son's head, trying to teach him early on, you never touch somebody without permission.
That's right.
And it's a funny circle
Mhm.
with my husband being very prominent, or my ex-husband being very prominent about that, because of what we went through. But maybe he's changing, maybe he's gotten better help, I don't know. I appreciate that he would never allow something like that to happen with my daughter, and doesn't think it's okay for my son to do it.
Right.
It's so funny
And that's
because
good.
I was teaching my son, don't you ever, because I was in a domestic violence situation. I grew up in foster care. I was being beat, I was being molested, all of these things were happening. So naturally, when it comes to raising my kids, I'm telling them, you don't put your hands on a woman. You don't disrespect her, da-da-da-da. But then my girls, I think they heard that, well, I can do anything to him. I can beat him up, I can hit him, I can disrespect him. And it's okay because mama said, you can't hit me back.
Right.
And so
Right.
him growing up as a young man, that whole stigma that women can't raise young men, he's like, well, I can't hit them back when they're disrespecting me. But mom, wait a minute, you told me to defend myself, but you said I can't hit them back. So I think in terms of that, how do you distinguish or get them to understand? I'm saying for a woman, don't hit a woman back, but then you have women who actually beat up guys.
And that's why we have to understand, when we talk about domestic violence, you do not put your hands on anybody. And so with that, that's why you have a lot of males, they don't come forward. They say, okay, this woman is hitting on me. And it's not necessarily that she's doing all these things. It doesn't always have to be physical. And so, after you minimize someone, degrade them, and talk about them constantly, and destroy their self-esteem, well, only thing you have is all these mixed emotions sitting over here. And how do you come out of that situation?
Right.
And that's pretty much what I was saying about my son.
Yeah. So how do you come out of that? And for most men, when they look and they stay in a situation, well, the first thing is, well, I can't afford to leave.
Yeah,
Because
that's
now I have
exactly
the child
First
support.
right.
Now I have all these other elements that I have to
I'm
consider.
still going to be liable.
I'm still going to be liable for everything.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, and with our soldiers, oh my God, who's going to believe me? I don't know, they do the divot training on Fort Hood, and sometimes I have the opportunity to facilitate it. And one of the scenes that I love is where you have the dual military couple, and she begins to hit on him and push him around, throwing the papers and everything.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he's saying, and so she said, who are you going to tell? Who's going to believe you?
You're going to look weak.
You're going to look weak.
Yeah.
What's a 300 PT test score? Who's going to believe you? He's sitting there like, oh, wow. So then he gets this call because someone passing by, they hear the ruckus, and they're like, hey, everything's okay? Oh, yeah, hey, battle, everything's good. Everything is good. So we have to, when we teach this, we need to understand that a female, because you're a female, doesn't give you the right to walk up and slap somebody.
That's right.
It's wrong. Wrong is wrong. And so that is what we have to teach. My daughter one day, she said, Mama, I had to tell one of my friends that, what I'll do to him. I said, don't ever let me hear you say that. I said, because when he hits you back, then you're going to want,
You're going to
So
want
let's not put
representation.
ourselves-
But if you think about it, why does a woman feel like she needs to assert her dominance? And I say dominance, I gotta let you know how not to treat me. I gotta let you know that if you do A, I'm gonna do B.
Well,
It's back to how we raise how sons are raised, or how the dynamics in the household are. Like, is he watching every day his father hit his mother, and then her come out and say, oh, it's fine, we're gonna be fine. She's got tears, she has a black eye, she has cuts and scrapes.
And she said,
But
we're
we're fine,
Yeah.
just go to your room and play. Everything's okay. Your dad just stressed.
Yeah.
Your dad's just had a hard day. So he sees that and he thinks, well, it's normal, it's fine. My mom was fine.
So this
But
should
she
be
wasn't.
fine
So
in another.
okay, so now we go back to our cultural norms. This is the norm to me, and so I'm not hurting you.
Yeah.
This is how I grew up. This is what my dad, when they communicated, oh my goodness, sometimes it got a little physical, but the family was all right.
Yeah.
No, the family
Mom was fine.
Yeah, Mom
She
was
woke up
fine.
the next day.
Because that's what she told me.
Yeah, right.
Well, before they were doing it so outwardly, now guys are getting really smart and strategic with it. Now they're hitting you in your legs, hitting you in your arms, so people don't see the bruises. So when I was going through mine, you can literally rub your hand on my leg and it felt like nipples.
Mhm.
But no one can see that. And for me, that was my norm. This was normal to me to go through abuse growing up. And so how can I, if this is your norm, what's that saying? If you know better, you do better?
Yeah.
Although I knew that
Yeah.
it was wrong, it's my norm. So
And-
really, is it wrong?
And mine was so easily covered because I'm a mechanic. I have bruises all the time from God knows what vehicle I'm working on. So he would always say, they're going to have to prove that was me.
Mhm.
And again, that's why I go with, is it something that is because it's the value of a woman?
I'm beginning to think that it's the root problem is people don't know how to deal with their anger. So
Yeah.
who's ever closest to them, that's where the anger is taken out on.
But even beyond that, because it's something that women are susceptible to,
Mhm.
is it because the undervaluing and the disrespect of a woman? I try to get to the root of what is the catalyst. Yes, it happened historically in your family, but if women were respected as another human being, do you think we would have still had those issues as far as domestic violence?
I think so. When we go back and we look at the dynamics of domestic violence, we still have to remember it's about power and control.
Mhm.
And so when we look at our society right about now, and we begin to establish dominance, so the male figure has always somewhat dominated,
Mhm.
the female gender. So when you look at that, so there's a mindset in our society that women are less than.
Well, you look
So I
at
think
our
that's what you're
president.
getting
at.
Look at the
So that-
president.
yeah,
how
look at
he
the
respects
look at that.
women, or
Yes.
don't disrespect women, or respect women. Yeah.
Yeah, we take it even further. When we look at the pay scale,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
when we go, and so there's a huge difference as far as equality amongst the gender.
Mhm.
And so when we think about that, does that play a role? Well, of course it does.
Mm-hmm.
Now we also have to look at, but if that individual, you cannot place something on me that I'm not willing to receive or accept.
Right.
Right.
So now it comes back when some say, well, you know what, the victim does a certain level of accountability, and some people frown upon that.
Yeah.
But we have to teach our daughters and our young men what a healthy self-image looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it does not include being anybody's punching bag. I don't care if they say that I'm sorry, because the moment that you do that, you've told me a lot about you, how you handle your anger,
Mm-hmm.
how you handle your stress, how do you problem solve.
Right.
And so when we look at that, if that's your problem solving capabilities is punching me, no, I'm gonna need you to go solve those problems with somebody else.
There's a heavy bag at the gym.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that. And so that is what we have to begin to teach our children. And that's one of the reasons I was like, we gotta get into the school systems, because it used to be the health education area. There were a lot of courses that we used to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about that
It makes
anymore.
them
Nobody,
uncomfortable.
everybody's uncomfortable.
We're supposed.
Yeah.
You should be uncomfortable. That's where growth comes from.
Exactly.
But a lot of
Exactly.
people don't want to get involved because 9 times out of 10 when you get involved, that person, like if it was a social relationship, that girl is probably going to turn against you because she's conditioned to react a certain way to that stimuli.
We had talked about this, that I had a friend who was involved. I don't know if they were married. I don't remember the dynamics of their relationship, if they were married or they'd just been together for a long time. And I knew that he was hitting her, and she was just like, I'm going to leave. I'm like, well, you can always come and stay with me. Well, it came down to, she called me crying hysterically. He had really did a number on her, and so I in turn, called the cops and met the cops over there. When the cops showed up, she turned on me. And she was so mad, and they took him to jail because she was just beaten, and she refused any health care, ambulance ride or anything. And she turned on me and she was like, I will never talk to you again for the rest of my life. And I thought, I'm fine with that because at least you're alive tonight.
At least you're
And it's on record now.
Yeah.
and at some point, once she gets a better understanding of everything, she's gonna appreciate what you did.
But look what it takes. Look at what she lost. Someone who actually did have her back.
Yeah.
That loyalty, everything that we said we wanted in another friend,
Yeah.
she was.
Well, then
giving
you
her
have to
that.
understand the victim mentality.
Yeah,
too.
that's true. That is true.
We
And
have to understand that.
that's why I was okay with her saying our friendship is over. That's fine. I get it. I know where you're at because of what had happened to me. I knew mentally where she was at, and that she wouldn't be in a spot where she could appreciate that for a while. Because that's a lot of damage that you
That's
have
a
to
lot of
reverse.
damage. Exactly. And what's the key factor there was fear. Because what you're looking at now, oh my God, what is he going to say? How am I going to face this once he comes out? How do we move forward? Do we move forward? And the fact of the matter is, he's still my boyfriend or my husband or
The
my
breadwinner.
intimate partner.
Or his certain
So all of these,
position.
so you got
Like
all these
police
emotions
officers.
just begin to flood the situation.
Yeah.
And now you're like, it would be better if I just not do anything at all.
Just take it.
Because I don't have to face all the challenges. I don't have to face all these barriers. I don't have to worry about somebody saying no. I don't have to face him and his family. And then, what do they always say? You cost me my career.
Yeah.
You cost me my freedom. You cost me. No, I didn't hit me.
Yeah.
You are causing all of this.
Exactly.
I didn't do
You take
these things.
responsibility
Yeah.
for what you
When they
did.
say that, you cost me this, you cost me that, and you can come back and say, I didn't cost you anything, you did it to yourself.
You
You're
did
like,
it to
yeah, but if
yourself.
you weren't a better cook, if you weren't a better mother, if you weren't a better
Get
lover,
that psychological.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you cost me
Yes,
a black
and that's
eye.
the-
I didn't deserve
I
that.
didn't deserve
you know?
So you look at the cycle violence. We still talk about that.
Mhm.
Even at some point when the honeymoon phase goes away,
Yeah.
what happens?
Yeah.
It gets to a point there is no making up. And then we have our little 90 to 120 days. And as soon as you burn the water or, you step on an eggshell or what have you, because they walk in and they set the temperature. in the
Yes.
room.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they do.
If you come in and you want to try to shift it and change that, no, I came in, I'm looking at TV, get the kids quiet, shut the baby up. This is
I
where
already
I
know.
am.
But and that's what I was before you walked in. I was talking to Vic and and I asked, do you need to, as terms of an escape plan? Do you before you even get with somebody or when you decide to date somebody, should you already have an escape plan for the just in case this man is abusive?
My mama said
Because it
always stay
seems
ready.
crazy when you
no
say it out
matter
loud,
what.
like, okay, let me
Yeah, I sound
have
like
this
a
designated bank
psychopath.
account.
Yeah.
Let me have this bag packed up under my
My
bed.
mama
Just in
always
case he
said-
blackmailed.
Just because it's stuff
But I had a
happens.
friend. I had a friend when I was younger. She was in her mid-40s, and she said, "Let me tell you something. Let me give you some advice that I didn't take heed of until it happened to me. Better always have a bag packed under your bed with money, passport, and extra keys
But
to your
you've
vehicle."
condemned me, you convicted me, and we haven't even slept together yet.
Not
You know what I'm saying?
really. I'd rather have a plan than not have a plan at
I know,
all.
but
So let's have a
logically-
plan of survival.
Yeah.
And so the plan of survival, in my opinion, is being educated on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, because long before that situation gets to that place where you have to pick up and run, you
Show the
see
red
the
flag.
signs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So can we recognize the signs now?
Early.
Yes.
Early.
We can,
Yeah.
but I
You
think
know-
that we look at those people and we're like, you see the good in them, and you're mad because they don't see what you see. And how can this person be such a, demon? Have these demons in him when I see him act with this person, he's this way. I see him at work and he strives. And you want the person that you love or that you build a relationship with, you want what you thought you built that person with. And it's very hard for you to pull back and say, that's not that person, it never was.
Can
It
you
never
even be the
was.
best judge of character? I mean, considering if this is your background abuse, do you even know what the signs are? Because what you may deem as a sign may not be that. Maybe he came into work late. It could be anything that's so minute, but you've ostracized it. You've magnetized it to be something big because it resembled something that red flag that you saw.
And see, and that's when we define them as about a pattern.
Right,
So
right.
now we've established a pattern of abusive behaviors. If you yell at me because, just got a little agitated,
Or I
having
didn't
a bad
clean the
day,
table
clean it.
good enough.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
look
Yeah,
at
because we
that.
all
Yeah.
yell at somebody at some
Yeah,
point.
at some
and
point.
yeah.
So we lose our temper at some point. So we'll say establish that as normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But when it is escalated to abnormal
Mhm.
because every day we're coming in and I have to adjust fire. I have to, it's all about me.
Yes.
And I have to sit up there and cater to whatever needs that you say that you have. And so now, going back, what does a healthy relationship look like?
We don't
Is
see
that
it.
healthy? Do we consider that to be healthy? But if that's your norm, yeah, you're gonna go along with that.
Right.
But if somebody is teaching you, wait a minute, when you're in a healthy relationship, we collaborate.
Right.
We
come to
have
an
choice.
understanding.
Yeah, we have
As
trust.
long
We
as
talk.
there's
You know?
not a whole domineering aspect to it when you even get into this relationship. Yeah, we can be joined in this venture, but if I feel like I am the man and that's what it is, it really doesn't matter what you say, because at the end of the day, you're just a woman. And you hear the word, you're just a woman.
Well, that minimization right there, there's no point for us going any further.
But they may not say it in their actions.
Oh, they
is what
feel
you're saying.
that
But
way.
for
It's
you,
been displayed.
well,
They can see it.
I'm a broken woman, and so maybe what I'm seeing is not really what I'm seeing.
Maybe I'm so traumatized.
Well, it takes some time to heal.
Maybe I'm so
Before you jump into another
Yes.
relationship.
You know what? That's
Yes.
so funny that you said it, because we were talking about that not too long on our dating show, and I had to tell him, you know, between my ex-boyfriend and now, that's a long time, but I knew I needed to take that time because I had to heal everything from my marriage that I was in and everything that I dealt with him in a relationship. And if I didn't deal with that, my next relationships were going to repeat everything that I just went through.
But what did they say? The way to get over one man is up under another one.
But I did not do that. I did not do
But
that.
that's not true.
I know, but with that mentality is
That
where
is how it
people
is,
jump
yeah,
into
yeah,
other
yeah.
relationships, because you're still looking for that attention. You're still
Yeah.
looking for those compliments. You're still
So
looking
the
for
problem
rights.
is not the men. The problem is the individual.
Yes.
Because like you said, you're still looking. What are you looking for?
You're looking for that
You know,
savior.
why
that-
can't you be satisfied with who you are?
And I think that's a lot of
And
work.
it's
Some people
okay
don't know
to be
that.
single.
Yeah,
it's okay.
And you know, I think a lot of people don't know. Like, okay, for in my situation when I was married, I lost who I was because before him, man, you talk about one head held high. This girl walked with the strength of a lion, you know. And then I met my husband, and I still walked like that. And I looked back, and I thought, well, I can see where I slowly started walking with my head down into myself, and my opinions weren't voiced, and things that I loved I didn't do because it didn't fit his criteria. And you know, so I knew when I was cleaning my sink and I looked up and I didn't know who I was. I had lost every single piece of who I was and my backbone, and you know, all the strengths that I had within me. I saw nothing but this
Broken woman.
shattered person who I couldn't even, face didn't even look familiar to me. So I was like, enough. I'm done. I'm done. This is my point.
When you say that you're done in that situation because of this experience, and then you get another relationship, and although it's not consistent as far as physical, there could be a mental aspect
Right.
of it.
And I jumped right into that relationship
right
too.
back in
I
it.
did.
So really, you're saying I'm done. You're done until the next time.
Yeah. So that's why when I was done with my marriage, I jumped right into another relationship. I knew there were red flags. I saw them, but I chose to ignore
You
them.
just want to be with somebody
Because I wanted to prove that my marriage didn't break me as a woman in my spirit, and you know, I was gonna be in love, and this love was gonna be real and gonna happen and gonna
live my life.
Right, it was gonna be forever, you know. And then now, like looking back on my marriage, now looking back on my relationship with my ex-boyfriend, there were signs. There were plenty of signs that you need to heal yourself. You need to heal yourself before you jump into relationship after relationship. Why are you feeling like you need to go from man to man to man? Heal the brokenness.
Or heal yourself before you wreck somebody else.
Seriously.
Wow.
And I'm going to just go ahead and say what Hope says. She says, experienced abusers know your next move from experience.
Yes.
Their success is built around them knowing your next move or reacting in a way that seems innocent.
Yes, that's true, because they mask what they're doing to you as love and affection, and it's because they care about you. Like my ex-husband,
I wouldn't do this if I didn't care.
He guarded what I ate. Like everything I did was up to him.
It's up to him.
Because I'm looking out for you. You know, your career. If you gain weight, you know they're gonna come after you, and you know I'm just looking out for your well-being. You can't eat this. You can't have that. We're not buying this. We're not going here to eat. I'm trying to help you.
And so now I would tell the person who's probably watching, and they say, oh, wait a minute, I hear that. And I truly believe that he is looking out for my well-being. We go back to the signs of a healthy relationship. Where's the choice in collaboration in
Mm-hmm.
that? Where is your voice
Mm-hmm.
in that?
Yeah.
And say, you know what? Right about now, I have the right to choose. I have the right to decide what's best for me.
Mhm.
When you advise me, and that's what they should be doing,
Mm.
you know, this is my opinion, you have a choice in accepting it or not.
Mhm.
So once the choice has been removed,
Yes.
then it's no longer a healthy relationship.
He's in
And you're no
control.
longer doing exactly, he's in control now. You're no longer doing this for my benefit. This is for your benefit because power and control. You want me to do what you want me to do. You want the results that you want to see. What about?
But I think
Well,
his
yeah.
influences came from societal
But-
aspect, because in regards to the way he was controlling how you ate, if society didn't put such a stigma, for lack of a better word, on your looks,
Mm.
and
Place
if
such a
you're-
high
if
value
you're more,
on your
if
looks,
you're
yeah.
slender, you're more beautiful, then I don't think a guy or a abuser would have that.
Well, let me ask you this: when you were in an abusive relationship, did you notice the onset very quickly, or did you look back and go, "Wow, that was just like a slight hand here and there," and then it built up, or was it a quick, "Let me tear you down and break you and build you back up to what I need you to be"?
It was my norm. Abuse was pretty much my middle name.
Right.
And so to me, it wasn't abuse because that's how it's always
Right.
been. And so instead of blaming that person like you're wrong, it was like, okay, what did I do?
What I do?
Because we grew up the same
why
way.
does this keep
Yeah.
happening? And the common factor is whom?
You.
Yeah.
So why?
And
yeah,
so, and I have no problem with saying that, listen, the only entity that we can control the
Is
only person
ourselves.
is yourself.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't I blame myself if?
Because you don't know any better.
Mhm.
And so an individual, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm just telling you on empirical data and the evidence-based practices, what we see right about now. And the common denominator is the person's belief system. You know, their values. What I think a relationship looks like. And so, and because of that, because if I know that, okay, say drug use, for example, they said, you know, if you smoke weed, I'm just using it as a bad example, but it, okay.
You about right.
All right, it's a bad example. But I smoke that because I like the way it makes me feel. I like this, I like that. Now, there's some hazards associated with it. So, but I'm going to ignore all of that because I kind of just like the vibe of everything.
And the reason why it makes me feel that way because it numbs whatever I'm going through, and I can kind of escape. It's an
And so,
escape
but in a
without
sense,
physically
escapism,
moving or
yeah.
leaving.
And so, but now when we're looking at abuse, because now it's easy because sometimes we don't want to look at the challenge and face the challenge ahead. Now, if I leave here, like you said, financially, I have no finances. I have to start all over. When individuals come into our shelter, that's the one thing we said the one approach we utilize is trauma-informed care approach. And what does that entail? You're talking about 5 different principles. You have to feel safe. You have to establish the trust. You have to establish the safety, the collaboration, the choice. So then that's what's going to empower them. And so when you look at that, when that person initially comes in, first of all, you're in a safe place. And we're filling out the application. Well, it's not an application, but it's an intake. And so we begin to do the screening process and see exactly what it is that we're dealing with. We go through and begin to lay out a service plan. The first thing you have to ask, what do you want? What do you expect to gain from this? And oftentimes they're going to come and say, I don't know.
Right, because I mean, they're
I don't
they're
know.
pulling from such a chaotic situation, and it's so hard to wrap your head around. What is my next move? How can I do my next move?
It's very scary.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
What am I going to do? And have people come in, and the only thing she could grab was 2 bags. You got a single mother with 2+ kids, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. In one particular case, there were 5. She has 2 bags. She comes in there, no socks, no shoes, no underwear, no birth certificates, no the pertinent documents. None of these things that we take for granted on an everyday basis, where you can just walk over and just get your baby their birth certificate, or just drive up the temple and get a social security card. He has the keys. He has the car.
Yes,
Everything
money.
is in his name. He has the money.
Yeah.
She has absolutely nothing. And she's looking at these beautiful babies and saying, what are we going to do now?
Mhm.
So this is what we have to take into account when we say, oh my gosh, she should just leave.
Mm.
You take your children out of a 4-bedroom house
You put them in
and
a
put them
shelter.
in a cubicle,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with 3 beds in there. And you're like in a playpen, okay, depending on the smallest baby. And so when we look at that, but they're willing and we're willing to do that if that means this is going to change my life.
Right.
Because
But
not
you
everybody,
know-
yeah, as soldiers,
Now, are they? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are they offered any kind of counseling for the mother and counseling for the kids about?
they are.
Okay.
So we have counselors on site. And we have your clinical social workers. You have your LPCs and your LMFTs. You have your substance abuse counselors.
And before you continue, what is the name of the organization that people can reach out to?
Teach Them to Love Outreach.
Teach Them to Love.
Teach Them
Can
to
you
Love
give
Outreach.
them the phone number for how?
254-519-2222. You can also go to our website, t3loutreach.org.
Okay, great.
And so, yeah. And so when we look at that, because we understand it has to be a holistic effect.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It does.
It has to be. And so even we have legal teams that we reach out to, because believe it or not, people do want to help.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to know in what capacity.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
That's
how
good.
can I help?
That's really good.
And
Yeah,
it's
so-
my experience has been, I hear what you're saying about everything, the resources, but when it happened to me and I was running the shelter that I went to, because this is supposed to be anonymous, they're not supposed to know the location of the place or anything like that. They actually sent letters to
Where you were.
the abuser.
Oh.
Pretty much let them know this is what she's saying, this is where she's at. They did this to me and another lady. The other lady, she had to run from the shelter to somewhere else because they gave away our position. So it doesn't give you a warm and fuzzy when you go to places like this if they have your best interest in really.
They
Or
probably
try to
didn't have
say-
a very strong program in place, because when we look at the victim assistance
Mhm.
program and now victim rights, and so, and I have to say the AG's office, they have a really good program in place. And so now, address confidentiality. You can let them know, hey, this is where I am right now. That address does not have to be given to the abuser.
Mhm.
What we do now, for certain documents, you do have to put the actual address.
Mm-hmm.
But for mailing purposes and other people, there's a P.O. box that we use. And so they never should know where.
And why
you
would
know,
they even reach out to the abuser if you're?
Because in some cases, like, okay, protective order.
Mm-hmm.
In the event that, and I would hope that someone was coming in running for their life, the first thing they would do is part of their safety plan is implement and utilize that system. A lot of people say, well, just go and get a restraining order.
Mm-hmm.
A restraining order is civil, and police cannot enforce that. A protective order is a criminal act that's taking place that they can enforce.
I didn't
See,
know
this
that.
is it's
I
about
didn't
education.
know. I didn't know.
Yeah,
And
so
so
it's
let
about-
me ask you, I was looking up the laws in Texas for domestic violence and, the abuser being prosecuted or whatever. It was so vague.
Yeah.
It wasn't like set in stone where you knew.
If you do this, you're facing this.
Yes.
And I told her, I had to tell her, well, they break it down by assault levels. And they break it down by, is it a misdemeanor versus a
Right.
felony? Was it intentional or was it, I didn't know? And that was one of the things that I saw on the site was, did the person know what they were going to do was going to hurt you?
But why can't it be
Intentional.
Yeah.
So we got to go back to the.
Mhm.
We have to go back and define it. So was it intentional?
Mhm.
Because some things can just be, well, there was an accident. It was not my intent to cause bodily harm.
And all
And
they have
so
to do is
not
say it. They
intentional.
don't have to prove that it wasn't intentional.
Well, no, you know it's intentional because you're going to have police reports,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so how many times has the police been out to the house? This is another thing I encourage you, call the police. Well, I just don't want to get anybody in trouble. When we do that, what we're saying is the burden of proof, and it's going to come a time when they look back and say, okay, well, what happened in this scenario? We are still, our system, when it comes to victim services, is still a bit antiquated. It really is.
Yes.
And so they're looking at, is anybody really sitting there talking to you unless you have a psychologist with you talking about emotional abuse. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's what you can prove.
Mhm.
Because now we have to understand we're still going back into the judicial system. What can be proven?
Mhm.
And so with that, when we don't call and make the reports, when we don't try to go and get the counseling, because what we've learned in the military is all a paper trail,
Right, right.
you know, and so protect yourself. We had a young lady, a young man, her husband broke both her wrists because she was trying to leave, and what he didn't want her to leave, and she was pregnant. So he kept twisting her hand, and she was a very, very petite little person. And so once she got to the hospital, and she was like, because she couldn't really move her, well, come to find out, they were broken.
Mm-hmm.
What she said was, I'm pregnant, he's broken my wrist, and a couple of other things had happened along the way.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do? So we need to get an order of protection. Didn't want to do that. Why? Because I got this baby, and that baby's gonna miss
His dad.
his dad.
That was
I
more
said,
important.
no, it would be more important if the baby misses you.
Yeah, right,
You
right.
know, because right about now, because if this continues, the baby's gonna lose both parents.
Mm-hmm.
And say
And so
again, because I feel like it's important, the difference between a protective order and
A restraining order
Restraining order.
is a civil action.
Mm-hmm.
Police cannot enforce that. That's going to Judge Judy. Y'all gotta
wow.
civil order. Because a restraining order is nothing more than saying that as neighbors we just can't get along.
Right.
There's a huge difference when we
Wow.
say domestic violence is taking place,
Mhm.
and so bodily injury or harm has come to me and has the potential of happening again.
Mhm.
That is what that protection order says, is that this person that's living in my house has caused me bodily harm, and there's a potentiality of happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I prove that? Because it's going to ask you on that form, what happened this time? So you answer that and you place the date. Then it's going to ask you, has anything of this nature happened before?
Mhm.
And that's when you do your timeline.
So what
What
if
does
it
that
did?
show? It shows the course.
Well, if it didn't,
What if
then you
it
had the
never
first
happened
time.
before?
You finally, yeah.
But as
Look
far
at
as
how
people
lethal
respect
this
it and
one- Oh,
listen,
yeah.
Look at the lethality.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's like with her broken wrist. That right there, it really didn't matter what had happened before.
yeah,
You
because
Right.
broke both her wrists
yeah.
to keep her from leaving
Mm-hmm.
the house, and she's pregnant with child.
Mhm.
That was huge.
Mhm.
And so with that,
child.
yeah.
Can you tell us, like, I remember reading a case study where victims of domestic violence, and they stay in the situation, they go back to their husband, their spouse, their boyfriends, or whatever, and they stay with them. The percentage rate of them dying by those persons' hands is very high. Do you know the statistics on those?
I will tell you this right now. In the state of Texas, domestic violence fatalities, women alone for 2017, 100, I think I want to say 152.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when we look at it's high.
It's too much.
And it's just, we're talking about the state of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And that's reported.
that's reported.
Okay.
God.
Okay.
You-
So that's what we have to look at. And because numbers don't lie.
Right.
And what I mean by numbers don't lie, you're going to report what you have.
Mhm.
And this is the other thing, the numbers that they don't get. We don't get the federal numbers from Fort Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The numbers we have out here,
And
Killeen.
Oh my God.
And so, and what they can do, they cannot touch those numbers. Why? Because you don't answer to the state of Texas.
No.
That's right. That's true. You don't.
You don't.
You don't.
You don't. So we will never get those numbers. And so, but where do our soldiers and our family members live?
Right here in Killeen.
Yeah. So those are the things that we have to think about and say, okay, you know what's happening? This right here is a lot dangerous than we know.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't continue to push the awareness, let's talk about prevention. We've highlighted a lot of preventive measures that we can implement.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to continue to implement. But it can't happen just once a year.
That's right. It needs to be something that is focused upon. And like you said, it's education. Our children need to be taught about how harmful it is and how to
It
protect
is.
yourself, and to see the signs, especially when our daughters and our sons start dating, recognize the signs of abuse early on. Because
If
you do start
somebody's
to
controlling.
like live in those patterns. Like mine, for example, I started to, I grew up how she grew up, and I noticed that I carried that into when I started really dating, and I was just like, I had to stop thinking about, what are you doing to yourself? You're constantly bringing these patterns back.
Yeah.
And I was just getting into the same relationship. It was a different guy, but it was the same patterns.
I never thought about what am I doing, why am I allowing this? I never thought about it. It was
I did for a long time, and then it was so funny because one time I was sitting there going, why would you allow this? Why would you, think that this is okay? And then it was just like in the same breath, I was like, this is my life. This is what I deserve.
because I'm not,
Why
I'm not good
That's what I
enough.
deserve.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't even answer that. I was like, why would I think I deserve that? And then I was just like, well, you know what? Just be happy with what you have right now. This is all you get.
Take whatever you
Yeah.
can get, because my mother wasn't in my life. She was in prison for 27 years, so we grew up. She voluntarily gave us to the state, and so when we were going through this abuse in the foster homes, in my mind, if my mom can't love me, then shoot, why would anybody else? So this abuse is like
Adverse childhood experiences, and that is why we, when the children come in with the families, listen, do you mind? Would you do this survey? And so, in doing that survey, it helps you understand the methodology or the method of thinking. It helps you understand the ideology towards relationships, unhealthy relationships, or remaining in an abusive relationship. Because I can only do better once I've been exposed to that, and I know.
Once you do better when you know better.
When you know better.
yeah,
And that's a very true statement.
Yeah. But you are influenced by society. You're influenced by what healthy relationships do you see like abroad? If you were walking around, if you were looking on TV, what resemblance of healthy do you see? There's not a lot of
But
things
you
to
do.
look up to.
But you do. No.
Let me see. For me,
The reason why I don't really speak
I don't
so
see
much
that.
about domestic violence because we talk about, how we grew up, and y'all know the childhood. I had both my parents, so it's a big difference. So the situations that y'all have been, in, I can't even speak on those, but, being in the military,
You've had to
I've
deal with
seen
other
it
people.
and had to deal with other people.
Right,
exactly. So,
yeah, and when I was in the military, I started to learn, you need to lean on your friends and you need to let someone know. Because I honestly, seriously, with 100% of my heart, I had to write a letter to my mom and say, if I die, it's him. And that's a very hard realization.
Don't do it.
It's a very harsh realization that you already know your fate and you're expecting it at any moment. And you have to tell somebody. Me and my mom weren't really super close. We never really have been, but I figured that telling her and writing it out to her would be proof enough.
Rather than leave.
Right. Yeah.
And see, the tie and the bond is just that strong. And so please, I wouldn't dare sit here and minimize it and say, oh, it's easy. No, it's not. It is not.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if it was that easy, I probably never would have been attracted to them to begin with.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so now I have to look within and say, okay, what's going on?
What's wrong with
right
me?
here?
That's why I looked at it
And
like,
I
what
never
was wrong
ask
with me?
people, and that's what I love about social work. I love about the health services, human health services, because one thing we never ask, what's wrong with you? What happened to you?
Right.
And that's what we have to, what happened to you? What happened? We're here. Why are we here right now? What happened?
What
where
led
did you come from?
Yeah.
Where did
And it was so weird because I grew up like her. Our family background is so similar. And when I left home, I was like, oh no man in his right mind, out of his mind, will ever treat me like that. And that's how I lived my life for so long. Like, I ruled, and if it was done, it was done. Bye, go away.
Yeah.
And then I met my ex-husband. And I don't know how he changed how I thought, but when I look back, it was so minute and so little. The change was a little. Like, you're so pretty without makeup. I don't really like the way makeup smells. Can you not wear makeup? And I thought, oh, he thinks I'm really pretty without makeup. Okay, I'm gonna take all this off, you know. And yeah, and I'm thinking it was just because, you know, he liked the natural. And then he was like, oh, I like that skirt, but are you gonna wear that outside the house? That's something you should only wear for me. Oh, okay, so this is sanctioned for my man. It was those little things when I look back that added up to, you don't have a bank card. I don't care if you're the only person making money. You're not buying shoes. You're not buying this. I am going to tell you what you can and can't buy, and then I'm going to buy it. Yeah.
You pretty much manipulated the way you thought about yourself.
Oh, yeah. It took so much time to break
like
me down.
Gaslighting.
Yes.
That's what gaslighting is what that sounds like. And then mine just looks so different than that because I feel like I am, things don't touch me. I don't go through stuff typical people go through. I don't know, for some reason, even though I experienced all of this abuse, I put myself here. That doesn't happen to me.
I'm on a pedestal. No way in the world.
It's weird because at the same time, I'm getting bit in my face. I'm getting slammed on my head. I'm getting these things, but again, that doesn't happen to me.
So you're in denial?
Love wonder. Yes. Yeah. And I think I still am.
I felt like
I think I still am.
I felt like at the time,
at least
I
you
felt
can
like
admit it, though.
if I admitted it out loud and that yes, these things were happening to me, then my whole world would crash down.
Weak.
Yeah. And everything that I stood for while I was in the Army, and as strong as I was in the Army, and as tough as I was, and guys didn't mess with me, that would come crumbling down, and they would that facade would be washed away. And if I admitted these things were happening to me out loud, then I'm a fool.
I don't control.
I'm the fool.
I'm right.
And it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see someone's hitting me in my face.
Yeah.
That somebody's touching that intimate part of me that makes me happy.
And I went through combatives. And I went through combatives, and I'm a very feisty type of individual, you know.
But just because you knew combatives didn't mean that you wanted to use that on the person that you cared about.
Well, and then when it came down to it, and he would put his hands on me, I would just shrivel up. And like I would become emotionless. I would leave where we were in the situation. Like I would become.
So we're gonna have to. This is what they call the neurobiology of trauma. You know, the fight or flight, freeze. And so when you get that, there's a system, a methodology to this, where the mind says, you know what, just shut down for a minute. Because you're being traumatized,
and you're trying to protect yourself,
and it goes into protective mode.
It runs into your reality as far as everything else, because you're in protective mode all of the time, to where your memory, you start to forget things, you start to do so many other things to make up for that trauma.
Right.
So that's your way of coping.
And I started to excel. I tried to excel at work. I tried to excel at PT.
You try to be
stronger for the outside.
Make up for that.
Yeah.
Where you fell short as a person.
But so many women, so many families, so many children, people in general are dealing with that. You know, and so it's not unheard of when the first sergeant, you thought everybody thought he was just this cool guy. He can take care of his troops. He can do all these things. But you found him in his room. He's committed suicide.
Right. Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't know he was going through that.
Right.
Because he puts up the front, or she puts up the front, because they can't let anybody know what's going on behind the scenes.
Because if they know, then that,
what are they
for me, it discredits everything that I had built up for them to see.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, with police officers, because I know that's pretty, happens in police. Why is it that when the wife goes and tries to report it, because it's a police officer, it's not, and I keep going back to respect, because ultimately I think it is a matter of respect of women. Why is it something that's not believed because of his position?
Goes back to power.
Protect and serve.
Goes back to power.
But if you have a moral compass, and if you put yourself in that situation to where, what if that was happening to my daughter or my sister? Or
we just can't say the police, and because go back to the military.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's an officer, a high-ranking individual, well, sometimes things are probably dealt with a little differently than it would be if it was a lower enlisted soldier and he's trying to do ABC. Because at one point, and this is when I retired in 2012, I'm pretty sure it's totally different now.
Yeah.
You know, you want to look at, well, they have so much to lose. Well, wait a minute, whether I'm a PFC, a private first class, or whether I'm a sergeant first class, or whether I'm a major or a lieutenant colonel, we all have so much to lose if we stay in that situation. So this is where I think, not just the police force, I think we have a tendency to look at things, and now we want to look at the social stratification, if you will, to say that, well, we'll take care of this entity over here, and they're young, they can deal with it. So those, now we're talking about different class structures, and so that would be a whole other segment.
So I'm gonna say what Hope says. She says a pastor, the support system told my friend to go back to her rapist. She didn't want to let God down. She didn't want to go to hell. She didn't want to risk the church alienating her. The most important thing in your life is your relationship with God. So in terms of religion, when you're trying to do right by the Bible.
But does that play, is that a big role?
That's a huge role, and that's why this is a ministry, Teaching the Love Outreach Ministries, because we've identified so many faults within the Christendom.
Right.
First of all, a lot of people reject the education of it. And they're not rejecting the fact that a man shouldn't hit on a woman or hurt her, or a relationship period shouldn't fall apart. What they're looking at, marriage is the Constitution, you know, deemed by God. And so the vows, and we take all and do the best that we can not to tear that apart. This is where I think we go in, we have to rightly divide the word of God. Because in doing that, the very scriptures, because those same scriptures have enslaved people.
Yes.
You know, and so you know the other scriptures have enslaved, you know, that was set them free. You know, because if we're talking about the two greatest commandments, okay, love yourself, love the Lord thy God with all the heart and mind, soul. Okay, we look at this, so I'm going to do that. And so love your neighbor as yourself. Well, do I love myself?
How do
I love yourself?
And if I don't,
how do I love myself?
How do I love myself? So I start looking at all of that, and then but we go to the one scripture where Bible says submit. Well, go back to Genesis when He created male and female. He created them, and so it wasn't the male without the female. It wasn't all of that. But see, now we get into the biblical piece of it and say that no, you're not disappointing God. You know, from coming out of an abusive relationship, the God that we serve, do you really think that He wants you to be subjected to that? And so He's talking about He's a God of love. And we go to 2 Corinthians chapter 13, we talk about the book of love. You're like, no, that's not God. But God so loved the world that He gave His own. All we keep talking about, look, where's the love in all of that? So that is what we have to begin to talk to our sisters and brothers in Christ to say, no, don't be enslaved by the word of God, because the truth shall make you free.
Right.
And so that is what we have to begin to minister on that. And this is one the reason I like the ministers of the gospel who work with us, because we're very adamant about that. You know, and why some churches will never let us in the doors, it's okay. But if they come through our doors, they're going to hear the truth.
Right.
You know, and it's the truth and the love of God that says, you don't have to stay in this. You have we have lawyers who are pastors and say, wait a minute, you know what? I'm going to help you get a divorce. I'm going to help you put these resources in place, because you have to understand you can't be controlled. There again, power and control.
So in terms, since you use those words, power and control, in terms of the Bible saying submitting to your husband.
But He also tells the husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church.
But it almost
we never hear that part.
No, they always leave that out. There's always
you
some
never
form
hear
that they
that
leave
part.
out.
But sometimes you gotta direct that back to yourself. You know, if I love myself, I'm not gonna do that to you,
and I'm not gonna take that as well if I love myself.
But
So for those of you who are tuning in, we are talking about
when
domestic
we
violence.
see here, and we grew up a certain way, and if that's how we saw mom,
That's how we think love is.
That's how we process. That was our ability to problem solve. Yeah, we're gonna, and it's not until someone shows us the right way that we say, you know what, that wasn't right.
Well, we're gonna second guess that right way.
until we learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teach
It's
them
a
to
process.
love.
Teach them to love.
Teach
Yes,
them
ma'am.
to
So,
thank you, ladies.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate all the information that you're helping to put out there and the continuous work that you guys do. You know, in your field, in your profession, how do you take care of you after hearing like traumatizing case after case?
And not take it
Self-care.
on.
We promote self-care.
Oh my gosh, that's so important.
It's,
Yeah.
let me tell you, mind, body, soul, spirit. And you have to. Because at some point you have to step away.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I may take a couple of days where I just don't go down to the shop. And what's beautiful is we have an awesome team down there. And our work is comprised of our staff, volunteers, interns, and staff members. And so with that, we have mostly retirees, you know, and our veterans. And then, and the reason I say retirees and veterans, what we found with that is that we have a unique way. We've taken those 22 years of service and being disciplined in order and say, okay, you know, we can make this happen.
I love
You know,
that.
we can make this happen because
That's
we
amazing.
know what it is to do a lot with a little.
That's true.
So
That's
so
true.
true.
Very innovative.
And so yeah, and so as we do this, so we're coming and say, how you guys doing this? Are you, you know, you got your funding and all that? No, what we do is we know how to go out and get sponsors. You know, we know how to look at investors. We know how to. We're gonna get for Gab. Hey, listen, this is what we're doing, and these are the results. You know, we open our doors we started the ministry in 2014 doing the outreach services.
You're retired.
You're right.
So that's when we started. But but as we were helping with victim assistance and the counselings and all of that, the substance abuse, because I'm a firm believer there's a direct correlation between the domestic violence and as far as the substance abuse and everything.
Yes.
So we had to get the substance abuse program going. But then we had all of that, but we didn't have the residential. So November 2016, we're riding downtown Killeen, saw the building, talked to the owner. He was like, okay, let's work something out. Got that building, and we opened our doors for residential care in June 2017.
Oh, wow.
And I will tell you, it's a 5,000 square foot building. It was 20 offices. We took 10 of those offices. You have what we call our west wing and our east wing. So we speak in this thing. We get rid of that. Okay. And so, but on the east wing, what we do is that we took that and turned it into bedrooms. Those 10 offices, and so they're bedrooms. So we have 20 beds. And so right now, like when we stay filled to capacity,
Sure.
and that's not a good thing because we look at what that represents.
Yeah, right.
But it is good in the sense that
They have
they have
There's a
somewhere to go,
resource. Yeah.
and it's a good resource.
Will y'all expand because it's
That's what we're trying to do. That's
I
what
might need a hotel.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We would love that.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm always, people say, what do you need?
Hint, investment.
Investors.
I mean, like, how do
Yeah.
people donate? Like, if they're like, I want to do something, but I don't have a lot of money, can I donate clothes? Can I donate toiletries? Can I donate?
Toiletries. Let me tell you something. Toiletries, underwear,
Yeah.
socks, personal undergarments, because we can never get enough of that. We're always looking for bedding.
Okay.
Okay, so because
Okay, I'll stop throwing out
if the
stuff that I
sheets-
don't like anymore. I'm you know.
Can they go to your website? People go to your website and figure out how to do these donations and.
So you can go to the website and see what we do, and we have a volunteer application on the website
Oh, nice.
as well.
I would love to
okay.
volunteer.
And so so do that, or you can also call 254-519-2222, and with that you can call and talk with us. You want to schedule an appointment to come down, you know, that's fine. Right now on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, Teach Them to Love, or you can go to my Facebook page, Lolita Gilmore. Look and see the things that we're doing in the community. We have a campaign that we're doing right now, the 5 Reasons to Give. And what that does is set us up for our Shades of Purple Domestic Violence Awareness Ball. In March, we did the Shades of Purple Domestic Violence Awareness Ball. We did it on Fort Hood.
Oh, nice.
And it was beautiful. And what happened is it's a red carpet affair. It's a ball. And everybody's in a shade of purple.
How beautiful.
Yeah. And when we crowned our overcomers, and the overcomers, because we don't say victims.
Right. I always say I'm a survivor. When someone goes, "Oh, you're a victim of domestic abuse?" No, I'm a survivor.
Yeah, and exactly. So we call them overcomers. You have to overcome this, and you overcome it by understanding the victim process, the victimization process, and what goes on with that. And so with 16 ladies that we crowned with their little tiaras and everything, and we had the escort, and it was just beautiful. You guys, if you go in there and you see the pictures and everything that we did, and that is our primary campaign. And we do that because this is how we keep our doors open. This is how we keep operations going. And so, and that's why I said earlier, we're looking for other people, investors, somebody with builders and things, because we see the need in the community. And we want to fill those gaps in service because now we understand, okay, so we have the building right now, we're taking women and their children. We have men, that are being abused, single fathers as well. But what I will not do, because you have so much pathology up in there, is mix the two.
Right, and I think that's a great idea because you run into too much liability as well.
You really, really do. And
these women are scared
to get together. Yeah,
and he's scared for himself. She's scared for himself, but they don't know.
They don't know what's happening.
You have the facility for the women. Do you have an additional one for the men?
That's what we're working on. That's what we're working on. And so, and we look at the programs of services that we have. We have what we call our outreach services as well as our residential care services. And so we offer, what we started out as, we become somewhat like a community-based operation, and we see that. And so now we begin to move forward in that. When we have the counseling, we have the psychoeducation pieces, the parenting classes, stress management, anger management, domestic violence, training. That's what we're doing. And then as far as the counseling piece, because the trauma that's taking place there. So what you see is a holistic umbrella of services, because you asked about self-care. So we understand that it's got to be the biopsychosocial and the spiritual component. And so that is what our services are all about.
And the things that I run into, and it's so crazy because that right there is my passion, helping people, because I've been there, but I run into the issue of, okay, am I wanting to help? Will me trying to help hinder? Am I kind of, how do I put it in words? Am I helping or hurting? Will I help or hurt? Am I reliving wanting somebody to protect me or have those resources available to me at that time? Can I do more damage than good?
No, well, you could. But one of the things we look at, because one of the methods or approaches that we utilize, I love to utilize Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Oh, yes.
Very
and
popular.
So, very popular. And so why is that? Because if you've not reached an area of self-actualization, and that's why we say overcomers, because at that point, when you've gotten to the point up to the top of that chart where self-actualization is where I know who I am now, I want to reach back and I want to help someone else and move them forward. Once you get to that place, you don't have to ask that question.
That's right.
You don't have to ask that question. But if there's still some reservations, that's okay. Now we look at, before we get to self-actualization, we look at esteem. So do we still need to go back and start working on the esteem, or the love and belonging, or the safety, or the basic needs? So when we begin to look at all of that, we say, okay, where am I on this chart? And if where you are on that chart is, say, love and belonging, well, come out to the support groups. Come out and help another young lady help find her way through. See, that's what I was saying earlier. People want to help. They just have to know how to help.
Right.
Yes.
And I have no problem saying, you know what, that's not your area right there. Let's get you.
This is where you'll fit.
Yeah, this is where you'll fit. Because we would have to do that and ask you to have an open mind so that you don't hurt anybody.
Yes.
And so you may want to come on one of the committees and start preparing for the shades of purple. And so hint, hint. So because this time, like I said, we did it over in the Officers Club on this past March.
Okay.
The next one is gonna be at the Mayborn Center up in Temple.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, we maxed out the Officer Club at 400.
Wow.
So we're hoping to max this one out.
That's
Because like I said, this is our biggest campaign.
Yeah.
You know, and until we can secure our funding, and we're hoping, when I say funding, we're looking at the VOCA assistant grant, trying to get things like that, so for victim services. And right about now, and I have to say, we've been doing pretty good, but we want to be able to get to that place where we get the additional buildings.
Right.
You know, we get the transportation system. And so, because what we wanted to be is that it helps and is to the point where it's advantageous for the client and their children.
Right.
We want to get the child center. So now mom can get the respite care and the rest that she needs.
Yeah.
But we also are wise enough to know this takes money.
Yes.
So we do campaigns like this so that we can continue to move forward with the ministry and with the outreach services.
And oh my God, this is phenomenal. Well, a question that's being posed: do you teach any kind of physical training, protection, or strategies for women?
No physical training.
Like self-defense classes.
Like self-defense
or-
classes. No, but we can coordinate that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's something.
I'm sure there's people out there who are like, hey, I'd be more than happy to offer the knowledge I have in that to these ladies, to these men.
We gotta get the word
And if
out.
you have
This is
somebody
it.
that's out there that wants to do that, let us know.
Yeah.
You know, we'll go over there and reserve the Killeen Community Center, you know, and have the class do it right there in the gym. We get the mats. And so it's going to take a village effort.
Yes,
you know,
right.
to
I'm
do
big,
this.
yeah.
We're being advocate for
Yes,
it.
it takes a village. And so I had another one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I had another, and I totally lost it because I was trying to
That's
make sure
okay.
to see if we had the protection, if there are any avenues. But definitely for those of you who are watching, this is such a great outreach program. Teach them to love outreach. Just the name alone, teach them to love, and it all starts with self. Because if you don't love yourself, then how can you can't love anyone else, and you can't teach anybody else how to love you because you don't even know. So get the word out. We are needing investors for this, honey. We need buildings. We need
Donations.
This is what we need.
Yes.
She's already named off the things that are
Volunteers,
needed.
yes.
But volunteer your time. Give back. Don't, be a part of the solution. Be a part of that change that you want to see. So this is phenomenal. And I'm wondering why, like, when I was going through it, it seemed like this wasn't available.
It seemed like you were so alone.
I was alone.
Yeah.
I didn't have any.
And
all I
that
had
is
was my
why,
kids.
and I will tell you, when we got started, I retired in 2012. I was at Fort Bragg, working at Forscom. Came back here and began to work with family advocacy on Fort Hood. And it was that I said I wanted to start working as a victim advocate. So I started working as a victim advocate, and I was like, oh my God. So chemical dependency, it was the real area that I wanted to do. And so I'm teaching out there at CTC. So I'm just all over the place right about now because I just retired. My husband's like, sit down.
It's hard too.
Take a break. And I'm like, okay. But then that's when I got into social work because I was understanding, and we're doing it. But now let's understand family systems. Let's get a better understanding of what we're doing. And so this is why we look at, and where I'm going with this is our internship program. And so one of the things that helps us move forward the way that we are is that we have an internship program. So for those that's needing us, like social worker, BSW, MSW, whether you're LPC or LMFT, because we have those people on site and their willingness to supervise. So that is another reason, even with the chemical dependency, licensed chemical dependency. And so with that, if you're looking for a site as well, we can help you with that. And that helps us. We're helping the individuals. They get the training that they need. They get their hours, and we get the support that we need.
And what's so crazy, everybody, I don't care who you are, knows somebody who is living that reality of domestic violence.
Yeah.
When you have available resource such as this, why aren't you doing anything that you could do to help?
Because every little bit will add up.
No matter
Every
how
little bit
minute you
adds
think
up.
it
Yeah.
is, like we need to advocate for this, push this, put the word out that this is here and available for women and men to use. Like she said, they do have the facility primarily for women, but they are working towards, which would mean investors are needed to get this male facility.
Let's pull our community together
Let's
so
pull
we
our
can make this a
resources.
well-rounded
Yes,
program.
yes, and I'm just in awe. So thank you so much for sharing that. with
Thank
us.
you.
Before
Thank
we
you,
go,
Oh,
when you said family advocate, I remember being in the military, and that's where I spent most of my time because soldiers were constantly having issues. But at the same time, me being Sergeant Johnson or whatever, I always had numbers in my phone in case anybody needed help. Whether I don't dial 911, I call KPD directly. So for domestic violence, I've had a friend of mine, a friend of hers had an issue, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm not as resourceful as I used to be when I was in the military. So being that I know now that if somebody are going through a domestic violence situation, I know now I can call, your ministry and, get them or direct them in your direction. And you had a situation the other night. You could easily slip that young lady this number.
Right.
So if she ever finds herself in that situation.
Because when
she
I went
can
to
get
back
help.
to check on her, she wouldn't answer the door.
Uh-huh.
He was no longer there, but she wouldn't answer the door. And I respect that. I understand, that's your supposed to be safe haven, and that's where you're not supposed to be embarrassed. And
Right.
I get it.
But look, there's because you see what's going on the news anytime. Sometimes when you call the police, it doesn't really work in your favor. You're calling for protection, but
And
if
that's
something
another
happens
thing
to
we
you,
need to talk
people
about.
are afraid to
Yeah.
call the police and get them involved
Because
because
this is, and we have a lot of places, and they do not take offenders. And so when I tell them, I say, well, I do. And it's, oh my God, why is it that you take offenders? Because at some point, what happens to the victim, she fights back. Or she's trying to protect herself. And what happens by the time she gets that, if he has a scratch, and I'm not minimizing it, but I have seen it where one case in particular, he would get in her face and provoke her. And then he got to the point he wanted her to hit him. And because she didn't, then he spit in her face.
Oh my gosh. That would be my thing right there.
And
Oh,
when
you
he
got
spit
it.
in her face,
that's my line right there.
and as soon as she slapped him, guess what? He called 911.
Of course.
So the first person who calls the police, is that how it works?
No, ma'am. You get there, and whoever has the physical injuries,
Oh, and
that person, and when she slapped him, she got arrested.
And so she has to prove. I guess it
And
doesn't
so
matter if
she
he
had to leave the
antagonized her.
house. And so no, it doesn't matter.
No, it never matters.
There was a case. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I can't remember the lady, African American woman. She had a domestic violence situation. She had a protective order against her husband. This was now her ex, but the police would get involved. She had a history of him abusing her. So happened somehow he ended up coming towards her, even though she had this protective order, and she killed him. Right. So they were charging her with murder.
Right,
But she had a history of this domestic violence.
She finally took things into her own
And I don't think she intentionally if he come and kill him type. I think in that moment, the heat of the moment, he's coming towards me. I know that the probability of him abusing me is
And me
increased
surviving
because
this
he's done
time
this.
is almost none.
So was it so easy for them to? And I know you probably can't answer this. Charge her with murder when it was self-defense. He historically has. Did her like
case.
that. She did everything that she was supposed to do. What the law said that you need to do.
I think they're revisiting.
Yeah, they are.
But
And
is she in jail right now?
I mean,
Yeah.
they'll
She's in
run
jail,
through
so-
that paper. They don't care about those things, especially an abuser who's like, "You're my property.
Right.
I control your whole life. This paper is nothing. I'm gonna run right through it."
So if you can't
Sometimes
depend
it's just
on
too
the
late.
law to protect you, then why call the police? Why get
Well,
others involved?
no, don't put that.
No,
out
I'm just
there.
saying. People would ask, women would ask that question.
Yeah, and
You
so,
haven't protected me up until this point,
So now, in some cases, that's why the relocation assistance program is so important.
Yes.
Because in some cases, it's so lethal. The situation is you can't stay in the same place. If I could care less about a piece of paper. If I want to hurt you, I'm going to come at you to hurt you if I know where to find you.
Right.
And so there are times when you have individuals, and it's not to say that it's the fault of the individual, because some people say, I'm tired of running.
Yeah. And I can see that,
And
especially
I
with
can
children.
understand that too.
Yeah.
The children are like, again?
Yeah.
We have no stability, and then you have CPS looking at you like, well, you know, what are you really going to do with your kids? You have no stability, and you're running and running and running. Yeah.
And,
And that's what I love about Ann Jackson, the assistant DA. We do a lot of work together. And her thing is, make the police reports. Call them out. You know, go get the protection order. And when this happens, and I'm not saying this young lady didn't do all the right things, something in there is amiss. I don't know what.
Right.
You know, and so when she can come have the advocate, you know, that's another thing. We're looking for advocates, you know, as well. And so we just, and I said, we began this saying that the system is a bit antiquated. So these things that we've highlighted, go to Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
You know, let's advocate, you know, to say, hey, listen, this right here, we need to change these things.
Yes.
And so the Texas Council on Family Violence, these are some of the things that we look at, and we need individuals like yourselves to say, well, this was my situation. This was my experience. We have gaps in the service. We have gaps in the policies. We need to have these things fixed.
Right.
And
It
so
shouldn't be so vague.
It
should
should
be
not.
very, very clear in black and white.
That's what I was
It
saying
should.
about the law. It's very vague. And so how can a woman feel protected? And Hope even said this is why women stay, because the system is not set up to really protect.
I
so
disagree. I disagree.
You have so many cases.
Yeah, because
and
I'm not gonna advocate or can then say that, you know, it's all right to stay. This is not why women stay. Because this system is in place. You just have to know what to do.
you have to
You know,
education
and
and
so-
reach out.
And
Yeah,
some people,
reach
yeah,
out.
like that's why we're doing this, because a lot of women don't even know where to begin, and some of them don't even have the phone to call.
Right.
You know,
Right.
can a friend call on their behalf and be like, she can't get to you guys?
Yes.
What do we do now?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Okay.
and so
That's
now
good.
she calls. So now this is what I like to do. I like to give them a call and say, are you okay? You know, are you okay? I don't have any place to go. This is, and so, and that's the start of it to get her to open up. And the reason I say I didn't want to agree with that statement right there, because sometimes all it takes is a statement that say, I understand why you're staying. No,
Right.
no. I understand that if you have children, they need to come out of that environment. I understand that you need to come out of that environment. I understand that there's going to be some barriers and some challenges, and it's going to be a lot of hard work, but it can happen.
Yeah.
And it will happen. You just have to keep moving forward. And, you know, and we won't knock you or minimize you or demean you because you cry. Be scared, but keep moving. You know, keep moving forward.
Right.
So that would be my message to everybody. They said, well, Lolita, how can you say, because although, now I have not been in a domestic violence relationship, I was raised in environments like that. And so because of the environment, now I understand with the children, the ill effects of a child being in situations like that. So this is where I tell them, it does not help your children. You know, it delays their development.
Right.
You know, it causes so many issues.
Long term.
And then the
term.
cycle just
Long term.
repeats
Yes, it
itself.
does.
And it
really
does. And it does.
And you always have to make that conscious decision. I'm not going to be like this. I'm not going to
It's
be.
up to you.
Yeah, you
It's
really
up to
do.
you.
And you know, as much as services and help we can give these survivors, you know, we also have to teach them. You have to take your steps too.
You do.
You have got to be taking those steps and standing up and realizing, you know, it's time to break this cycle for you, for your children.
Right.
And so, and we look at it because the one thing, and I know we have to go, but that incident that happened with the young lady with the shoe, for every one incident that happens like that, you have 10 more that succeed and they come out.
Yeah.
So we need to begin to focus on the success stories. And that's why we do the Shades of Purple, because that's our way of focusing on the success
The
stories.
spotlight.
The
They
spotlight.
need to be spotlighted
They
because
need that.
they went
need
through
it.
so much. Why not? They need to
They
show,
overcame.
and they're the product of saying, "You're gonna be okay.
You're gonna be okay.
I did it. Look at me, and I was down here, and now look."
I made it.
I'm walking, and my head is up, and my kids are happy, and we're thriving.
And there you go. I may have come out crawling, but now I'm running.
Yeah.
You know, and some people doing a marathon. Now I'm running for others, and now I'm helping others. It can happen.
Yeah. I
My
totally believe that.
my final question for because a lot of people on our page, DW 2.0, the rise of a broken woman, are out of the country, out of the state. When you find something that's localized, like we're speaking of your organization, how do they feel comfortable reaching out? Because we can only give what's local for us. So this is comfortable. But how can they reach out? How do they do that?
And when I say Facebook Messenger, we get messages all the time. You know, and so I have no problem reaching out. And I give that phone number. We also have a ministry cell, and I'll give that number too, 254-247-9970. So when we look at that, and these are things that we're going to put our calendar out there, so you know the different events, you know, that we're doing. And so that is, we had one in July, Operation Family Matters. You know, we did that over in Copper's Cove at Camp Triumph.
I love it.
Yeah. And so we did that because they're, again, celebrating the reunification of the family. We got to begin to build the families, you know, up again. So I would tell anybody to reach out to us on Teach Them to Love on the Facebook page. Reach out to us on Lolita Gilmore. Hit us up on Messenger. Go to our website. Email us, teachthemtolove@gmail.com. And so, and just be a part of our team.
Yeah,
Just be a
definitely.
part of it.
And let me make sure, because my memory, the way it's set up.
We got the video.
254-257-9970.
Say it again.
254-257-9970.
No, 247-254-247-9970.
Okay, great. Once again, thank you very much for being
Thank
a part
you,
of this
ladies.
and taking, you know, your time to come over here and help educate us and our listeners. And hopefully that somebody out there can use something that we got
I hope
for
so.
whoever they need the help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank y'all for tuning in. We will be with you next Saturday. We'll let you know the topic as it gets closer to that. And once again, I'm LaWanda.
Elisa.
Victoria.
Lolita.
And you are listening to the ladies of DW 2.0, the rise of a broken woman. Bye.
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 Well, thank you so much for coming.